I'm Finneas, and I'm here today in the Criterion Closet. It's a treat as a person who spends their entire life online to get to come inhabit the actual liminal spaces that you frequent on the internet. I've sort of staged this a little bit to not be in here for 3 hours poring over stuff. But the first thing that I've picked out is A Hard Day's Night. This is really one of the first things I kind of remember watching with my dad. Sometimes you watch a film that you liked, and there's like the scene you love, and then there's, other stuff, and then 4 scenes later, there's like, oh, there it is. And this is just sort of like back-to-back magic. Like the second or third scene is them on the train, and they're like, who's the little old man? And he goes, Paul's granda. And then he goes, he's very clean. He's a clean man. The Beatles music is totally the most important music in my life. And for some reason, I was super, super anxious and filled with a sort of unfounded guilt as a child. And I think other people that I've spoken to that, I didn't even know growing up also felt this kind of like, they're gonna come and get me feeling as kids, but this kind of made me feel like safe and comfy. So I'm excited to have this physical media now. This is Eyes Wide Shut, the Stanley Kubrick film. From a music perspective, the reversed choral like whoop thing that plays during the sort of seance ritual scene, one of the scariest pieces of music I've ever heard. I watched it a couple years ago right before Thanksgiving, and then I remember being at the Thanksgiving table, meal had already been eaten, pie had already been eaten, and I was sitting there with Billy and my parents, and we were like on the Sonos, and I remember like pulling up that piece of music from that sequence, and Billy was like, why are you playing this? Why are you playing this right now? I think it was so jarring and unsettling to her, which is the whole point of that piece of music. But it's pretty fantastic. So excited again to have this in hi-fi and listen to that disturbing piece of music to my heart's content. This is Sound of Metal. This is a film I've only seen the one time, but I was really moved by this film. I was also haunted by it. I was a new fear unlocked, as kids love to say these days. And the sound design is fantastic. His gradual deafness is amazingly designed, and then he gets a cochlear implant toward the end of the film. Then his world is this kind of like lo-fi, degraded thing that he's hearing through his cochlear implant that is really beautifully conveyed in this film. And then there's a sequence at the end of it. I'm spoiling the whole movie. Whatever. At the end of it, he takes his cochlear implant off, and it just goes to complete silence, which is so effective and haunting. I have goosebumps. I really think this movie is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. I've picked out WALL-E. I really loved this film. Seeing it in theaters at whatever young age I was when it came out, I will admit it seemed like a more distant future than it seems like it is now. But it's so funny and it's romantic, and I did rewatch this very recently, and it really does hit. It's aged fantastically. Actually, the thing I wanted to do before I wanted to make music for a living was be an animator. That was like the thing that I was the most obsessed with. So I think that is really the core of why I'm happy to talk about WALL-E. Punch Drunk Love. Paul Thomas Anderson, one of my favorite directors. Punch Drunk Love. I really just think that Adam Sandler is the GOAT. He's especially great in this. And I'm highlighting this specifically because of John Bryan's music in this. I just think that it's spectacular. John Bryan obviously has done film scores that I love, and also done work on, the albums of pop stars and hip hop artists, and I've been equally inspired by that. So I think that as I have tried to get as good an education as I can in film score and soundtrack, John Bryan has been a North Star for me because of how the music in the movies that he's scored makes me feel. We have Alfonso Cuarón's Roma. My backstory on Alfonso is that pre-Roma, Billy and I played a show in Milan. We got word that Bu Cuarón, Alfonso's wonderful daughter, was coming to see our show. We were playing really small venues at the time, little clubs for 250 people. and we would kind of say hi to everybody before the show. And Boo was there, and we got to meet her, and she was a total sweetheart. And Alfonso had brought her to the show, and I have also during that period of time, like Chris Rock brought his daughter to a show and walked up to us and was like, "I don't know who you are, but my daughter loves you." And I was like, "Great, fantastic, that's all good. Nice to meet you." And so I was pretty prepared for the same story to be true of Alfonso. And so I just walked up to Alfonso and said, like, "Thanks for coming. Thanks for bringing your daughter." He was like, "The sound that is at the end of the song Hostage, that go like," he goes, "What go like that?" And I was like, I was so surprised that he had like taken the time to listen to the music and had, ideas about it and opinions. And so we talked about music for the 30 minutes before we played, and then we played a show, and then we kept talking afterward. And he was like, "Will you send me a playlist? I will send you a playlist." And so we started sending each other tunes, and he sent me a bunch of really great stuff. He kind of hipped me to, I knew about FKA Twigs, but he hipped me to a couple FKA Twigs songs that I loved. My pride and joy was I sent him Pony Boy by the artist Sophie, who has been a big influence on me. And so I really credit Sophie and Pony Boy for him offering me the scoring gig for Disclaimer. I was in London on tour with Billy. This is now many years later. It's 2022, I guess. And I went to visit the set of Disclaimer, and it was like an episode of a TV show or a scene in a movie about filmmaking, if that makes sense. It was like sets rolling in and out of frame, and in between setups, Alfonso would be like, "Come with me to the edit bay." He would show me these scenes in the edit bay, and then a PA would run into the edit bay, and she'd be like, "You have to see the hospital set. You have to come check out the hospital set." And we'd go check out the hospital set. He'd be looking around, and he'd go, "Has Chivo seen this?" And Chivo would come, and he was like, "Have you seen this?" And Alfonso goes, "No, but the blue on the walls and the blue on the floor are all wrong. The wrong blue." And Chivo's like, "I was thinking the same thing." They were so immediately aligned about this stuff. And then the PA came back over and was like, "The dogs are here." And he was like, "Ah." And we went over, and there was like 6 dogs sitting lined up. And he looked at all the dogs, and he loves animals. He's very sweet to animals. And so he's being sweet to all the animals, and he goes, "The fur is too white on this dog. Could we make the hair darker on the dog?" And the owner was like, "No." And he was like, "We will need to find a darker dog." And I remember saying to one of his producers on set, I said, "What day of production are we on?" Because he was operating the way that I operate on like day 1. And she said, 75. And I think that it just sort of reminded me that is the goal ultimately, is to just care about the thing you're making and every detail of the thing you're making as much as possible. So a great lesson in passion and focus and investment in the project that you're working on. I have learned just as much from standing over his shoulder as I have from watching his amazing movies.